Hey Doxology, Pastor Steve here. I'm following up on our announcement from this past Sunday where we let you all know that our leadership decided to discontinue the live stream moving forward. This isn't a decision we made lightly, and we know that some of you have questions on why we made this decision, so just want to provide you some insight into why we're doing this. And you could say the reason is twofold. First, there's an important reason, and then second, there's a really important reason that we're doing this. And so first, the important reason has to do with the nature of our church and the demand that it places on our volunteers. We're not a large operation. We planted just about 5 months before COVID hit. And so our production team, they're relatively small. And the philosophy that we have as leaders here is a very long-term view of ministry. And so, especially in the church planting world, there's a lot of pressure to go, go, go. And often a lot of that burden is placed on the staff and the volunteers. But in order to help our production team breathe a little bit, have some weeks off where they can sit with their loved ones in service, something has to go in that setup, especially when we first started coming back to service in person, things were pared down. We were doing an acoustic setup, and so they were able to devote manpower to the live stream. Now that things are up and running, they're more stretched thin, and so it's a way that we can serve them by allowing them to focus on those who are here. And then so as we pare things down, the live stream will need to go to help give them a little bit more of a break and help us be around for 50 years and help the members who are here be happy and healthy as they do it. So that's the first reason, just to help ease the burden on our volunteers. But second, and here's the really important reason. So now that things have reopened and all adults who want a vaccine are able to get a vaccine, and we don't have anybody in our church who's homebound due to health reasons, the reason we're cutting it, and I say this as pastorally as possible, is we see this as a powerful way to encourage you to follow Jesus in the way that he's clearly called us to in his word. The Old and New Testaments, from beginning to end, makes it so clear that one of the best ways that you can follow Jesus and be formed and matured into the person that he's making you into is through gathering together with a local body of believers where the worship service is not a product you consume in isolation, but it's a participation that you're a part of and that you give yourself to. Hebrews chapter 10, verses 19 through 25 is one of the places where it talks about this, and it even uses language saying that you can't even draw near to God through Christ and hold fast to the gospel and love one another and exhort one another unless you are meeting together regularly in the context of a local church. And there are over 50 commands in the New Testament alone that talk about doing things for one another. So serving one another, welcoming one another, disciplining one another, and so forth. And the only way that we can do that is when we're gathered together, worshiping together on Sunday. Second, the very word for church itself in the New Testament, ecclesia, it literally means assembly. So intrinsic to the name and the nature of the church means it's an assembled people together, and we can't do that when we're isolated in our living rooms. Can you grow a bit, in your relationship with the Lord if you're streaming a service online? And absolutely, and we did that during the extraordinary circumstance that quarantine was. But you should see a live stream as a not ideal but a helpful solution during extraordinary times. So, as one author put it, live streaming a service is a little bit like a spouse who serves in the military being deployed overseas and continuing their relationship with their spouse back home through Zoom. Is that necessary for a season? Yes, but is it ideal? Is it the best way that they can grow together? No. In much the same way, it's the same way that happens when we live stream a service from our home instead of coming to the church to worship with people. And then number three, just as we were looking at even the statistics of our services, as people were tuning in live and when people would watch the service after service would happen, the majority of the watch time would take place during the sermon as opposed to the other components of the service. And I understand that. We're used to things like TED Talks and podcasts. We're just used to listening to teaching. But we feel like by continuing the live stream, where mainly it's going to encourage people just to listen to the sermon, is it's encouraging what we have going on in our culture right now, which is to see the sermon as this, if you could call it a non-contextual commodity that's like abstracted from the things around it, right? Where it just lives on its own. When what we see in Scripture is the preaching of the word is supposed to take place in the context of singing and the Lord's Supper and serving one another and discipline taking place. It's meant to be an important but one component in a much more powerful, holistic setting that's taking place when the body of believers are gathering. And so by encouraging you all to make a regular point to come and worship with us on Sunday, we feel like we're helping you live as Jesus calls you to do and walk in the fullness of life that he calls us to. And so if you consider Doxology your primary church and I or we haven't met you, we'd love to get to meet you, and maybe you're not able to come and we don't know about that. And so please reach out to us. You can connect to us through the Connect tab on our website. We'd love to get to know you and talk with you about how to best serve you moving forward. And if you don't live nearby in Arlington, DC area in Virginia, but you've been tuning in from a different area or from a different state, and we've been the main way you've been hearing from the Lord and worshiping from the Lord. First, that encourages us so much. And second, let us know, because we would love to help you get connected to a local church wherever you live. And so if any of you have questions about that, would like to talk through it more, we would be happy to. Again, this isn't a decision we made lightly, but we did it because we feel like it's one of the best ways that we can care for you as the leaders in this church as you walk as a disciple of Jesus.